Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. My name is Andy Wilson, and it is so great to have you with us today. The thing that I really want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for is that you have now expanded us to 22 countries. Thank you so much for sharing, for posting, and all the work you're doing and on our streaming channels, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and, of course, LinkedIn. So, again, welcome. My guest is Fritz Steiger. Fritz, welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville.
Thank you, Andy. Great to be here. I'm just really honored and humbled to have a part in this program and to share some of my stories about Walmart and get acquainted with you a little bit more.
You bet. You know, I'll tell you, Fritz, here's what I think about you. I have admired you from a distance for years, and what you did at Walmart and beyond Walmart. And it's been so great over the last several months to get to know you a bit more. It's really an honor to know you. And I look forward to a lot more, Fritz, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, this guy, let me just tell you about this guy, okay? He was like the number 2 guy at Walmart. He ran public relations and he ran PR and the government assistant, and he was in Washington. He was everywhere. Fritz, you had Sam Walton's ear. What an amazing thing in those days, in those early days. Wow. How was it? How was it to hang with Sam Walton?
It was one of the highlights of my life. I mean, to be sought out and to be pursued by Sam the way he pursued me back when I was like 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
Milking cow. But he really gave me an opportunity, changed the whole direction of my life and my career. Sam would say, if it's not merchandise and operations, let Fritz do it. So it was a really kind of a startup mode. And I'm a startup individual. I really enjoy entrepreneurship. And so the things that I did working for Sam were like, he knew these things needed to be done. Yeah. And we oftentimes ran into a little resistance.
Yeah.
A few of those areas.
I can't imagine, because when I joined Walmart, we had 120 stores at the time. You know, we were a big company then, so a regional company for sure. And I remember seeing you at our meetings and when I'd come to the home office for meetings and things, and, you were the guy in corporate affairs and media relations, and you were traveling the country, sharing and telling people about Walmart. It's amazing that time, that so important, critical time of Walmart, where we're getting our foundational company moving at that point. And you had such an integral part in that, Fritz. So we just got to hear about it, man. I'm telling you.
Well, there's so many things to talk about, but I like to start out talking about how Sam was able to hire me. I was actually milking cows with my dad. We had a dairy operation. My brother Lamar, my brother Carl were part of the operation, and so we were milking cows out east of town. But I was going to church at First Presbyterian in Bentonville, and Sam and Helen were members there. And so I was the youth director and would get up and speak and would talk and lead the kids. We'd go over to their house and, paddle canoes, and they really promoted that with the young people in the church. And so one Sunday after church, Sam said, "Fritz, why don't you come over and have lunch at the house?" And I didn't think much about it, but so went over there, and Jim and Lynn were there, and I think a couple of their little children at the time.
And Jim's son, his wife Lynn.
Yes.
And you were how old?
I was 23. I think 24.
All right.
And so we had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I remember that, and potato chips. That was lunch. And so after lunch, Sam said, "Fritz, I have a opportunity I want to present to you. I want to offer you a job." And I said, "Well, Mr. Walton, I have a job. I'm milking cows." And I said, "I'm really not interested, but what do you have in mind?" And he said, "Well, we've been putting money aside in the company for the last 3 or 4 years, and we want to give it away. And I need to hire a director of the Walmart Foundation. This would be our philanthropic arm of the company. They'd given merchandise away for years, in the stores, but they never had cash to give. And so he had this idea for a scholarship program. and he wanted me to lead that program. And I said, well, Mr. Walton, I'm honored you want me, but I have no interest. I'm milking cows. We're going to do with Steigerland Dairy what you did with Walmart.
Yeah.
He said, okay. So he drove me out to the dairy that day, stayed around for probably an hour and asked questions about cows and about milk. And of course, he grew up in the Depression,
right,
when his parents milked cows, and he and Bud, his brother, delivered milk. And so I was always intrigued with he stayed around for so long. So I go back to, he leaves, and then I see him in about 3 or 4 weeks, and he comes up and he kind of nudges me and he says, have you thought any more about that job offer? And I said, no, sir, I'm not interested. Well, this went on for probably, 6 to 9 months. I can't remember how long it was, but at least 3 or 4 times he kind of came back. Well, things started changing in the economy. The dairy business got bad. The milk prices got cut. We were in a bad position, and my brothers and my dad said, one of us has got to go to town and get a job. And so, Fritz, it looks like Walton's after you. Why don't you go back and see if the job is available? Well, I told him no so many times. I kind of felt bad about it. But when I went back, I said, Mr. Walton, I said, is that job still available? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, it is. He said, I've been waiting on you. And I said, you've been waiting on me?
Yeah.
So I went to work for the company, started the Walmart Foundation, and we set up a scholarship program. Sam wanted to give $1,000 in every community. And we were in little towns, back in those days.
Right.
We're in the big cities.
Yeah.
So $1,000 was a big scholarship.
Yeah.
So we set up a pilot program for 36 stores the first year, kind of did a test run and got it going. And then we spread it out to 360 stores the next year.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of the Walmart Foundation. And it really planted in me a love and a desire for education, which later led to education reform in another part of my career.
Right.
That I was involved in.
Right.
So it was a exciting program to be able to go and to give a student, not the highest. We didn't base it just on academics. We based it on, the well-rounded student. He wanted somebody who was involved in sports and somebody that was, hard worker and so forth. So to be able to award that in a small community, it meant a lot for Walmart.
Wow. Now, how much was Helen involved in that?
Well, I think Helen really, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think Helen really had the spirit of generosity. She was the one that really was whispering in Sam's ear, or maybe not so much whispering, encouraging the stock option program, the employee, profit sharing program. But the generosity of giving money back. And, it wasn't well known, but I think she was really behind it. And we ran into some resistance from some of the top brass at Walmart, like, why is Fritz giving away money? We're trying to make money and put it on the bottom.
Oh, I bet you did. Yeah, I bet you got a lot of resistance. But some of the operators at that point.
Yes. Yeah. But I also had the opportunity to run the Sam and Helen Walton Foundation. I didn't run it, but I helped Jim and Lynn.
Yeah.
That was a program that gave scholarships to the children of associates. And they gave 6 or 8, and it was a full ride scholarship to maybe $8,000 or something back in those days. So...
one of the things that I remember when I was growing up at Walmart and I went to the year beginning meeting, and, it was always around Helen and Sam's anniversary, around February, I believe. It may have been Valentine's Day was their anniversary. It was, okay. Yeah. And I knew we'd always be there. And I remember Helen one time, Sam, they came up on the stage and they presented him flowers for their anniversary. And Sam said, Helen, you want to say a few words. And I remember this like yesterday. Helen, she spoke directly to the spouses, for a moment in the room.
Yes.
And then she said this. She said, it's not what you gather in life, it's what you scatter in life that counts. Something like that. I may not be exactly right, but that was what she said. That has had an impact. That had an impact on my life. As a young leader at Walmart, for her to say that, and I, just like wonder what really goes on behind the scenes that she's having such an impact.
Well, the slogan I think back in those days was "We care about ourselves."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that
it was
from Helen.
Yeah.
And they really did have a love affair.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to watch them. Of course, I knew them in church, and they were really like, surrogate parents. I had great mom and dad.
Yeah.
But Sam took me under his wing when I went to work for Walmart, and Helen at church took me under her wing, and she got me involved as an elder on the Presbyterian church when I was like 22 or 23. Yeah. And I said, Helen, I'm too young to be an elder.
Yeah.
She said, oh, don't worry about that. I want you.
Yeah.
She saw something in me.
Yeah, she did.
And Sam saw something in me. But what I was going to tell you, the love affair between them is that there's a great story when Sam went hunting. This is 1983, I think. And Sam was going to be in Falfurrias for about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And she came to me and she said, Fritz, I want to give Sam an anniversary present, Valentine's Day. And we're going to remodel his office. And I said, oh, we are. She says, yes, we are. You're going to help me with it. So Sam at that time had been in that office, I don't know how many years, maybe 12 or something. The carpet was run down. The drapes were just nasty. And the old chairs that they sat in were old. And so when he left, I was the one responsible for totally getting it gutted, bringing in all the new carpet and getting the chairs remodeled or reupholstered and so forth. And so she said, now when he comes, I want you to see the surprised look on his face. You've been a part of this.
Yeah.
So she called me, and he came, and he was wearing his orange garb, and old Roy was there, and he had his shotgun, and he walking down the hall, and my office was right next to Loretta Boss's, who was his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had called ahead, and I was ready, and so she walked by, and she said, come on. And so we walked and watched him, and the door was closed, and Sam goes in, and he opens the door, and he walks in, and he looks around, he says, oh, Helen, he says, I spent 28 years trying to get this office to look this way, but honey, it looks real nice. It looks real nice. She said, happy anniversary. And so I forgot to say that, but she said, happy anniversary. And that's, he backed up, and she was the one person, that he just really adored and would listen to. Mm-hmm. She could speak to him about things that nobody
else could. Yes. That is such a great story.
It was wonderful to be a part of that. Then he looks over at me, and I go, he came in my office the next day, and he said, you're okay. I know, Sam, that Helen wanted you to help with that, and I'm glad.
That's such a great story. I know you have a lot of Sam stories. Now, so we want to hear some more Sam stories, and because, there's just so wonderful. Now, you were giving the money away. You were going to Washington. You were traveling and talking about Walmart and the culture. I'm sure the people, the towns we were in. Now, I know you were giving interviews around the country. So did you and Sam talk about those kind of things? How did that work?
Well, Sam knew that we needed to be in, first of all, Washington. I started out with the Walmart Foundation, but he knew that I had an interest in politics and government. And he knew that I could speak and get up in front of a crowd. And so he let me be kind of he was grooming me more to be more the corporate affairs person.
Right.
So he said, go to Washington and we don't have any issues. But he knew he had the foresight to know that at some point, and today, I don't know, they've got 300 or 400 people probably working in Washington.
Sure.
Yeah. He knew that we would need to be present in the nation's capital. And so I would go around and just introduce myself to congressmen and senators from the 7 states at the time we were in, and maybe 300 stores. And I would tell them, I'm from Walmart. We have X number of associates in your district, and we just want you to know we have an impact, on what's going on there. So he let me start the government affairs program, which I enjoyed. About quarterly, I would go to Washington. And then he knew that we needed a political action committee to help elect congressmen and senators to the U.S. Congress. And so he signed the letter. He wrote the letter, and I sent it out to all the top management, and he was asking them to voluntarily contribute. And so we raised $100,000, and we were able to give money to candidates and so forth. But the other thing that was happening at the time is that Walmart was only 300 stores, but yet Walmart was beginning to get some national attention. People were starting to notice, this company called Walmart down in Bentonville, Arkansas, and this guy named Sam Walton. So Wall Street Journal, Forbes magazine put him on the front cover with by 1983, he was the richest man in America. And so people were calling, and one story that I like to tell is that there was a young reporter from the Los Angeles Times who had traveled all the way without an appointment, knocking on the door and said, I want to interview Sam Walton. And Sam came to my office and he said, Fritz, this kid's, he was probably 28, 25 or 26. And he said, he's come all the way from Los Angeles. I don't have time. Sam's response was, I'm running a company, you go talk to him. That's why I hired you.
Yeah.
And so I went out and sat down in the lobby in those old plastic chairs when we had you remember the...
Oh, I remember those.
Remember those days?
I remember those days.
And so he and I sat there and I said, look, Mr. Walton just doesn't have time to talk, but he wants me to chat with you. And this is all off the record, but I'll kind of give you some background. And so we finally got around to the proverbial question of, well, Walmart's putting these small town merchants out of business. You're gouging, you're really making it hard on those little businesses. And so I said, look, here's the deal. Those guys can compete if they want. It's typical. The five and dimes put the general store out of business, and the general store put the peddler out of business. So it's a transformation. I was trying to explain to him. I said, look, those downtown merchants have been gouging the consumers for years, high prices, no service, and Sam's coming in with variety of merchandise and low prices and so forth. And about 3 weeks later, Sam comes walking into my office with the Los Angeles Times front page. Fritz Steiger, junior executive, says, small town merchants gouging the consumer. And he said, now, Fritz, I understand what I agree with you. They are, but you've got to watch your words. And he took me to the woodshed in a very nice way and said, you got to choose your words carefully. And so it was a great lesson for me in public relations to choose my words carefully.
That is such a great story, Fred. I'm thinking, the chairman could take us to the woodshed, and I remember, I was, when I came to Bentonville in 1987, and I was a regional vice president, and, I'd been in the stores all those years as manager and district manager. And I remember sitting down in the auditorium on Friday when we'd have those management meetings. Yeah. And, and Sam wanted to know a report. Where were you? What the stores looked like? What competition looked like? Yeah. And, and again, I don't know, I was 29 years old or something, and I remember he would turn those eyes to you. And when he looked at you, you knew you were going to get a question asked. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd already been up about 5 hours, and that was a 7 o'clock meeting, getting ready for that 7 o'clock meeting, because you just didn't know what he was going to ask.
Well, everybody in those meetings out in the old warehouse, there were tables that were set up, and he went down. And I remember one time, I was probably, my first or second year there, and I was sitting on the back row with Lee Scott. I was director of the Walmart Foundation, and he was director of transportation. Right. Of course, went on to be CEO of the company.
That's right.
So Lee had a real good sense of humor. And so something was said, and Lee was leaning over, and he said something to me, and we both just burst out laughing. And I remember Sam said, now, Lee, Fritz, what you want to tell the rest of us what that joke was back there? We want to know what your the last time I sat next to Lee Scott.
Yeah, you got to run from him.
No, those were intense meetings, and you had to be ready. Yeah, because Sam would get to me. Fritz, tell us what's going on. Yeah, you'd stand up, and I was in Washington this week, and I met with all these congressmen, and he wanted everybody to know what I was doing so that they would be informed.
Yeah,
and it was a very good communication.
We did a great job. And not only those Friday meetings, where the management got together and we all talked from operations, merchandising to everything, transportation, logistics, all of that, legal, everything. Yeah. And we talked, and we really, it was a communication. And it was our job then to leave and go communicate that down, that to our direct reports. Yeah. And it eventually got to the stores. That's how we did it. And it worked. We all communicated it. And it began with Sam Walton, to your point. Yeah. He wanted us all to know what was going on in the company.
Yeah.
And Saturday morning, so we had Saturday morning meetings. Yeah. So those were quite something, weren't they? Talk about. Do you have any stories around a Saturday morning meeting or any times you could share with us?
Well, first, I didn't have any direct reports. I was a one-man show.
Yeah,
so I didn't have to go back. When the meeting was over, I was done.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys had to go and make your phone calls. And
that's right.
But I do remember we would start those meetings at 7:00, and Sam he got on a health kick one time, and he brought in oatmeal cookies. He was convinced that we would all be healthier if we would eat oatmeal. And that was about the same time that Rob Voss and Jim Von Grimp were into tennis. They played a lot of tennis with Sam after the meetings were over. I never was a big tennis player, but they together went into his office one morning after a Saturday morning meeting, and they said, "Mr. Walton, we think we need that Walmart needs a fitness center so that he was on this health kick anyway." And so they went in and talked to him, and he ended up talking to Helen, and they gave $1 million in 1983. And so Rob and Jim and myself flew out to Golden, Colorado, and looked at the Coors Fitness Center, their associate fitness center, and Halliburton in Dallas is where we went. And so as a result of that, the first Walmart fitness center was built out on Highway 102.
Right.
And it was the beginning of really helping associates become more healthy and get in better shape. And so that became very important to him. But
it did. One of the things now, the new one just opened. Have you been to the
40 years? Yeah.
Yes.
I got to go. I got invited.
I did. Yeah, I got invited. Unfortunately, I was out of town, but I didn't get to go. But I haven't seen it, but I've seen photos of it. I'm definitely going to go. But the next generation of fitness center now is it's just their commitment to health. And, Sam he's extremely focused on health, and he would talk about it.
Yeah.
And he would sometimes talk about it and point people out that may need to be healthier, right?
Well, it's interesting because he was concerned about healthcare. He had the cancer towards the end of his life, in the early 90s, and his son John was very focused on trying to help find a cure for that. And I wasn't there, but I've seen the old video of Sam 2 weeks before he died. It wasn't a very clear video, and he was not in very good shape. But he'd been all over the world, I'm sure, to different hospitals and doctors. And the one statement that he made, and that goes back, almost 35 years. That was 30 years ago, where he said, we've got to do something about the cost of healthcare in the United States. And now, of course, Walmart has been working at that, and they're making great progress.
They are. And what Alice Walton is doing around the healthcare, her focus now with that. And I just recently toured a group of 20-something people at one of the local Walmart stores in Northwest Arkansas, and it has a health clinic. And, I was pointing out that, that's the different services this health clinic offered and the prices for this. And then you'd have the optical center next to it, then a pharmacy. And I said, one of the things Walmart is very still focused on is Sam Walton's vision and dream was to bring healthcare, lower the cost of healthcare. And it's great to see what Alice is going to pick that up and do no telling what with it, which would be wonderful.
Exactly. I think it's going to have this same dramatic, disruptive impact on American healthcare that Walmart has had on retail.
I love what you just said. Healthcare needs a disruption, and that's exactly what I believe that's going to happen. I hope that's what happens.
Well, I love the word disruption. I love innovation and entrepreneurship, and that's really what I've been about. And I've been involved in a lot of different organizations and businesses and opportunities that have been disruptive.
Right.
And I've recently written a book called Divine Disruption, because I believe God has been involved in my life, and part of that has been in disruptive ways to bring about a better way of life. My passion is to help people have better lives, and of course Walmart's very famous for making people's lives better and lowering the cost of merchandise and so forth. Mm-hmm. But the book really is a memoir that talks about my career starting on the dairy and moving to the Walmart world, and then my involvement in politics and my involvement in the public policy arena, as well as real estate, and my most recent career endeavor has been in the area of helping people find capital for companies that are early stage disruptive companies and so forth. But one of my really exciting parts of my career was when John Walton got interested in what I was doing down in Texas with school choice, trying to help parents be in a position to be able to choose the best schools for their children, particularly back in those years, 30 years ago. We were focused on the inner city schools of children that were stuck in trapped schools that weren't great schools. And John had a strong compassion and a real desire to help those parents be able to give their kids. He knew he had been given an opportunity that most people never would have. He wanted to share that. He spent lots of his money on trying to bring about reform in the public policy arena. And so he and I partnered back in the mid-90s, and I worked for about 7 years with him in trying to help bring about reform, first of all, through the private sector, just people giving private money to demonstrate to the legislature that parents want to have a choice in where they send their kids to school, but they didn't have the money. So we provided scholarships. And then eventually it began to get catch on at the state legislative arenas. And so now we've got probably 7 or 8 states that are offering educational savings accounts where, like in Arkansas today, most people don't know this, but Sarah Huckabee was able to get legislation passed as a result of what John helped fund and what we did back in the mid-90s. Every child in Arkansas who's in school has access to $7,000.
In Arkansas?
In Arkansas.
Okay.
And there's other states doing the same thing.
Okay.
$7,000 you can use it to homeschool, go to private school, or public school, whether you want tutoring or you need to buy a computer. And so the idea is to make all schools better. It's not to tear down one system or the other, but it's to give parents a choice. And John Walton was very focused on that. And unfortunately, we lost John in 2005 to an airplane accident.
Right.
But his impact on the world of educational reform will be his legacy.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you spoke about that season in your life. I know in my research, and it is, and I encourage our viewers to research you and see the work that you and John and others, and that you have laid these foundational principles and now in Arkansas, we're reaping that hard work that you and John and others did back in those days around the Texas public policy, right?
Yes, right.
So that's wonderful. Fritz, what an interesting life. And you're still working, you're still giving back, you're still focused, you're get up every day. Now, I know that you mentioned that you're doing some things on the entrepreneur area. Is there anything else you would like to share about that with our viewers?
Well, one of the things after I stepped down from the world of nonprofits I was involved for about 15 years in the late 80s and through the 90s up to 2001. I got involved in the real estate business, and I was a developer, and I got the opportunity to build some really nice subdivisions here in Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas. One I live in today is the Arbors at Deer Crossing. It's over on I Street across from the Thaden Airport, and it's a condominium community. But following the crash of 2008, it changed the direction of my career once again. And so I began to look at what are the assets, what's the equity that I have accumulated over this career of mine, where I've been in all these different kinds of political. We didn't talk about the political arena, but I've done a lot to help in a couple of campaigns to help elected United States Senator. I worked on the George H.W. Bush campaign in 1979 and 80 when I was in college. And so what I realized is that I had a plethora, is what George H.W. Bush used to call, of relationships of people who had not only given money to these causes, like school choice and public policy reform and so forth, but they were also investors. And so I began to look at how I could take companies that were needing capital. I wasn't a registered broker-dealer, licensed, but I had these relationships with people all over the country who had given millions of dollars to help low-income kids, public policy people. And so I began to receive requests from different companies that were involved in medical reform, medical devices, breast cancer diagnostic that's just going to, again, disrupt new innovation. There's so much in America, ingenuity is just key to American prosperity. And so I always am on the lookout for those kinds of companies that are going to make a difference and change the world. And so my job has been to be a master connector. I have relationships all over the country with people that are venture capitalists, that are private equity, family office, just wealthy individuals who God has just humbled me with the opportunity to build relationships with those people. And so I find I try to match those people with opportunities in the business world, with companies that need, and companies are always needing capital. And so my motto is, I connect people with opportunities and resources.
Good.
So there's always an opportunity that people have. New ideas in Northwest Arkansas is just full of great ideas that are going to change the world, not just in the supply or retail world, consumer world, but in all areas. And that's who we are, not just in Northwest Arkansas, but as Americans, we have that entrepreneurial spirit. And there's always a need for resources.
Right.
And the people have the resources, or they have the ideas. So I love connecting. That's my joy. That's my passion, is being able to put those people together.
Wow, that's so awesome. It is just, thank you for sharing so much about your beginning at Walmart. And I definitely want to hear more Walmart, more Sam stories. I'm sure you have a lot more. But working at Walmart, people ask me all the time, how was your career at Walmart? And I said, well, here's how I'll say it. I said, no matter what position you had, there was not an easy chair at all. Every chair is hard. No matter what you do at Walmart, it's hard. It's hard work. It's demanding. But I would do it again.
Yeah.
Because of the people, number one, but the learning and the expectation and the values that drove decision making inside the organization and all, I would do it again. Just like you, we had the opportunity to work for the greatest entrepreneur, no question, but also to learn from other great leaders and people that Sam would bring in and to teach us and to speak to us and to introduce us. What a great career we've had, and I'm so happy where Walmart is today. I think Doug McMillan and his team, all of them are doing such a wonderful job today of leading the company. And it's when I walk through stores, distribution centers, or wherever, it makes me happy that we had a little piece of that early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no question. I think Sam was probably the greatest merchant there was. He loved merchandise, but he also was open to innovation and disruption. And I like that about him.
Yeah.
You mentioned entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And back in those days, what I loved about him is he brought me in, he said, Fritz, this is the idea.
Yeah.
He gave you enough rope to go out and just do what you needed to do.
He did.
And left you alone. But if he saw that it needed a correction, he wasn't hesitant to come in and correct you, as I've already shared.
Yeah.
But what a beautiful thing to be able to go and to create and to make a difference in people's lives.
Okay, Fritz, Divine Disruption.
Yes.
Your book. Okay, you have to come back and talk about this book. we want to hear your stories, and we want you to share with us about your book. So please come back and spend time with us. Your stories today, your passion it's come through today. What you're passionate about and your desire, and I see that fire still in you to do so much.
Yeah.
And we just really appreciate you taking time to share so much with us this morning. And we want to hear more from you. Can you do that?
I would be happy to. I'd love to talk about my passion. I'm an old. I come from a long line of Steiger storytellers.
Yeah.
So I love to share stories, and I've got a lot more to share.
Well, everyone, our guest, Fritz Steiger, from the dairy farm to Walmart and beyond, you did it, and you're still doing it. And we really wish you the best. And I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners today. Thank you so much. It means so much to you. We'd love to hear from you. You can message me on LinkedIn, and you can message me on our website. Our website's dbbnwa.com. That's where you'll find all of our podcasts and many, many articles around retail, omnichannel, and servant leadership. So again, Fritz Steiger, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day.